The alarm bells rang through the deep space monitoring station, Omega-7, like the screams of dying metal. Technician Vexrel stared at his sensor screen with 4 eyes wide in disbelief. The numbers could not be right. They simply could not be. "Right. Commander Zethek, you need to see this," Vexrel called out. His voice shaking like leaves in a storm. Commander Zethek moved his massive frame across the control room. His species had ruled the outer monitoring stations for 300 years. Nothing surprised him anymore. Or so he thought. "What is it, technician?" Zethek asked, settling his bulk beside the trembling Vexrel. "Ships, Commander, many ships. Coming from the dark zone beyond the rim." Zethek looked at the display. His blood turned cold as winter on his homeworld. The screen showed dots. Thousands and thousands of dots, all moving together like a school of deadly fish in the black ocean of space. "How many?" Zethek whispered. "The computer stopped counting at 50,000, Commander. But they keep coming." Far away from the monitoring station, Captain Lee Deho sat in the command chair of his ship Silent Arrow. The vessel hung in space like a shadow, invisible to all sensors. Lee was a human, though no one in this part of the galaxy knew what a human was, not yet. "Status report," Lee said quietly to his crew. Lieutenant Park Mensu turned from his station. "All systems green, Captain. The Dominion monitoring station has detected our decoy fleet. Perfect. And our real position?" "Still hidden, sir. They cannot see us," Lee smiled. The plan was working exactly as Admiral Park Jin-woo had promised. It would. For 20 years, humans had been preparing for this moment. They had studied the Galactic Dominion, learned their weaknesses, understood their fears. Now it was time to use that knowledge. "Begin Phase 2, Lee ordered. Back on Omega-7, more alarms started ringing. Vexriel's hands moved over his controls, like a musician playing a mad song. "Commander, the ships are changing formation. They are moving into patterns I have never seen before." Zethek watched the display with growing fear. The unknown fleet was arranging itself into shapes that hurt to look at. Perfect geometric forms that seemed to bend space around them. Number. Known species could coordinate so many ships with such precision. "Send a message to Nexus Prime," Zethek ordered. "Tell the High Council we have a situation." On the capital world of Nexus Prime, Supreme Chancellor Vextar received the message in his private chambers. He was old, even for his long-lived species. He had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of stars. But as he read the report from Omega-7, something cold touched his heart. "Impossible," he muttered. "No one challenges the Dominion. No one." He called for his aide, a young female of the species named Kethra. "Summon the High Council," Vextar ordered. "Emergency session, now." Within an hour, the greatest minds of the Galactic Dominion sat around the crystal table in the council chamber. Holographic displays showed the mysterious fleet in all its terrifying glory. "What are we looking at?" asked Council Member Jexrin, his voice tight with worry. "Unknown," replied Intelligence Director Kethrak. "The ships do not match any design in our databases. The energy signatures are unlike anything we have recorded. Even their formation patterns suggest a level of coordination that should be impossible." Supreme Chancellor Vextar stood slowly. "How many ships?" "At least 100,000, possibly more. Our sensors cannot get accurate readings. It is as if the ships exist partially in normal space and partially somewhere else." The council chamber fell silent. For 3,000 years, the Dominion had been the supreme power in the galaxy. Their fleets numbered in the tens of thousands. Their technology was the most advanced known to exist. Yet here was something that made their greatest achievements look like children's toys. Meanwhile, aboard the research vessel New Horizon, Dr. Kim So-ro worked at her laboratory station. She appeared to be studying stellar formation patterns, But her real work was far more important. She was monitoring Dominion communications, listening to their growing panic. "They are frightened," she reported to her hidden communication device. "The psychological impact is greater than we hoped." The device crackled with a response in Korean. "Excellent work, Doctor. Continue monitoring. Phase 3 begins in 6 hours. Dr. Kim smiled. She had been living among the Dominion for 5 years, posing as a researcher from a distant world. Her knowledge of human psychology had helped design the perfect fear campaign. The Dominion thought they were facing aliens. They had no idea. They were looking at their own future. Back in space, the mysterious fleet continued its advance. On each ship, human crews worked with quiet efficiency. Commander Yoon Hae-jin piloted her fighter through the formation, her ship disguised to look like something from a nightmare. The technology was actually quite simple: holographic projectors and sensor scramblers. But to the Dominion, it looked like magic. All units maintain formation. Admiral Park Jin-woo's voice came through the communication system. "Remember, we are not human today. We are something they have never seen before." The Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical displays. Everything was proceeding perfectly. The Dominion was already moving their fleets, preparing for a threat they could not understand. Fear was a powerful weapon, and humans had learned to use it with surgical precision. On Omega 7, Commander Zefek received new orders from Nexus Prime. The Dominion First Fleet was being dispatched to investigate the unknown vessels. 20,000 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy, armed with weapons that could crack planets. "They want us to maintain observation until the fleet arrives," Zefek told his crew. "Continue monitoring. Record everything." Vexril nodded and returned to his sensors. But what he saw there made his blood freeze completely. The unknown ships were not just maintaining their formation, they were growing. More vessels appeared from the darkness, materializing like ghosts in the void. "Commander," Vexril whispered, "there are more coming. Many more." Zefak looked at the display and felt his world change forever. The enemy fleet now numbered not in thousands, but in hundreds of thousands. Ships beyond counting, all moving with impossible coordination toward the heart of Dominion space. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Galactic Dominion faced something greater than itself. Something that defied understanding, challenged everything they believed about the universe, and threatened to end their reign as the supreme power in the galaxy. But they did not know the truth. They did not know that their greatest enemy was not alien at all, it was human. And humans had been planning this moment for a very long time. The war for the galaxy was about to begin. But it would not be the war anyone expected. The High Council of the Galactic Dominion had never seen Supreme Chancellor Vextar look so old. He stood before the great crystal table where the most powerful beings in the galaxy made decisions that affected trillions of lives. Today, fear filled the room like poison gas. "The unknown fleet has grown to 200,000 vessels," Intelligence Director Kethrak reported, his voice steady despite the terror in his eyes. "They are moving toward our outer colonies at a speed that should be impossible." Council member Jexrin slammed his fist on the table. "How can ships move that fast? Our best vessels cannot match their speed." "We do not know," Kethrak admitted. "Their technology appears to be centuries ahead of ours, perhaps millennia." Supreme Chancellor Vextar felt the weight of 3,000 years of Dominion supremacy pressing down on him like a mountain. Never before had they faced an enemy they could not understand, could not predict, could not defeat with superior numbers or firepower. "What do we know about them?" Vextar asked. "Very little. They do not respond to our communication attempts. Their ships phase in and out of normal space like ghosts. Our sensors cannot get solid readings on their hull composition or energy sources." Far across the galaxy, General Choi Minho sat in his office within the Dominion Military Academy on the world of Kepler Prime. To his colleagues, he was Professor Chenito, a military strategist from a distant Dominion world. They had no idea he was human, or that he had been feeding information to the human fleet for over a decade. Choi opened his secure communication device and sent a coded message. Dominion military response proceeding as predicted. They are mobilizing the 3rd and 7th fleets. Recommend accelerating psychological operations. The response came quickly. Understood. Initiating Phase 3 protocols. Choi smiled and closed the device. The Dominion had trained him in their own military academies, taught him their tactics and strategies. Now he would use that knowledge against them. In the depths of space, engineer Nam Soo-jin worked frantically in her hidden laboratory aboard the disguised human vessel, Phantom's Edge. Her job was to create the impossible technology that made human ships appear alien to Dominion sensors. Status report on the phase generators, her assistant called out. Working perfectly, Nam replied. The Dominion sensors see exactly what we want them to see. Ships that exist partially in another dimension, energy signatures that make no sense, hull materials that should not exist. She had spent 15 years developing this technology, studying captured Dominion equipment and improving upon it in ways the Dominion could never imagine. The irony was beautiful. They were being defeated by enhanced versions of their own technology. On Nexus Prime, Supreme Chancellor Vextar called an emergency meeting with his closest advisors. The situation was growing worse by the hour. The unknown fleet has begun broadcasting, reported Communications Director Lefzon. The messages are unlike anything we have ever received. Play them, Vextar ordered, the chamber filled with sounds that made every being present feel sick to their stomachs. The transmissions carried harmonics that caused physical pain to most Dominion species. But more frightening than the pain were the words, spoken in perfect galactic standard. Your expansion ends here. You have spread like a plague across the stars for too long. Withdraw to your core systems or face complete extinction. This is your only warning. The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. The silence that followed was more terrifying than the words themselves. Analysis? Vextar asked weakly. The voice patterns suggest a hive mind intelligence, Lefson reported. But there are undertones we cannot identify. Some of our linguists believe the speaker is not native to galactic standard. There are accent patterns they cannot place. What they did not know was that the message had been recorded by Dr. Shin Tae-young, a human psychologist who had spent years studying Dominion psychology. Every word, every tone, every harmonic frequency had been carefully chosen to create maximum fear and confusion. Aboard the research vessel New Horizon, Dr. Kim Sora monitored the Dominion's panicked communications. The plan was working better than anyone had dared hope. The Dominion was terrifying itself with possibilities, imagining threats that did not exist, while missing the real danger entirely. They are calling us demons, she reported to her hidden contact. Some believe we are from another dimension. Others think we are machines given life. The fear is spreading faster than we could have planned. Meanwhile, Colonel An Jae-sung worked within the Dominion Intelligence Service on the world of Sigma Station. His colleagues trusted him completely. After all, he had served the Dominion faithfully for 8 years, rising through the ranks with dedication and skill. But his real loyalty lay elsewhere. The unknown fleet has taken position at the edge of the Kepler Nebula, he reported to his human contacts. Dominion forces are moving to intercept. The first fleet will arrive in 6 days. The response was immediate. Understood. Prepare for contact protocols. Remember, we are not human when they arrive. We are something they have never seen before. Back in space, Admiral Park Jin-woo stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying tactical displays that showed the approaching Dominion fleet. 20,000 of their most powerful warships, armed with weapons that could destroy worlds. Under normal circumstances, the human fleet would be vastly outnumbered and outgunned, but these were not normal circumstances. All ships maintain alien formation patterns, Park ordered. Remember, we are fighting their minds, not their ships. Every movement must seem impossible. Every tactic must defy their understanding. Commander Yoon Hai-jin received the orders in her fighter cockpit. Around her, thousands of other human pilots prepared for the greatest deception in galactic history. Their ships looked like nightmares made real. Their weapons appeared to bend the laws of physics, and their coordination seemed supernatural. But it was all human ingenuity, human creativity, human determination to be free on the monitoring station. Omega 7, Technician Vexrel watched his sensors with growing horror. The unknown fleet was doing something impossible. Individual ships were disappearing and reappearing in different locations, as if they could teleport at will. "Commander Zethek," he called out, "they are moving inside the asteroid field. But our sensors show them passing through solid rock, like it was empty space." Commander Zethek felt his world crumbling around him. Everything he knew about physics, about technology, about the possible and impossible, was being challenged by what he saw on the displays. How? He whispered. He would never know that the human ships were simply using advanced holographic projectors to create false images, while the real vessels moved through carefully plotted safe passages in the asteroid field. The technology was impressive, but not impossible. The Dominion's own scientists could have developed it, given time and motivation, but fear had clouded their judgment. They saw magic where there was only clever engineering. Supreme Chancellor Vextar received the final reports as he prepared for sleep in his private chambers. The unknown fleet had grown to over 300,000 vessels. They had demonstrated impossible technology. They had issued ultimatums that suggested knowledge of Dominion history and psychology that should have been impossible to obtain. For the first time in his long life, Vextar felt truly afraid. Not just for himself, but for the entire Dominion. For everything his people had built over 3 millennia of expansion and conquest. He did not know that in a hidden chamber, deep beneath the surface of a distant moon, human leaders were celebrating the success of their greatest gambit. They had turned the Dominion's own strength against itself, using fear as a weapon more powerful than any gun or bomb. The real war was just beginning, but it would not be fought with traditional weapons. It would be won in the minds of those who believed they faced something alien and terrible, when in truth they faced something far more dangerous. They faced human intelligence, human creativity, and the desperate determination of a species that refused to be conquered. The largest armada in galactic history moved through space like a metal storm. 50,000 Dominion warships, each one capable of destroying cities, formed battle lines that stretched across entire star systems. Supreme Chancellor Vextar had committed everything to this moment. Victory or extinction. There would be no middle ground. Admiral Korith commanded the first battle group from his flagship Eternal Dominion. He was the greatest military mind the Dominion had produced in 5 centuries. He had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and never known defeat. But as he stared at the tactical displays showing the unknown enemy fleet, doubt crept into his mind like ice water. "Sir, we are approaching the Kepler Nebula," reported his tactical officer. "The alien fleet is holding position at the nebula's edge." "Alien formations?" Korith asked. "Unlike anything in our databases. They have arranged themselves in patterns that seem to violate basic tactical principles. No clear command structure. No obvious weak points, no defensive formations we can recognize." What Admiral Korith could not know was that he was looking at formations designed by General Choi Min-ho, who had spent years studying Dominion tactical doctrine. Every ship placement was calculated to confuse and intimidate Dominion commanders. making them second-guess their own expertise. Aboard the human flagship New Seoul, Admiral Park Jin-woo watched the approaching Dominion fleet with calm satisfaction. 20 years of planning had led to this moment. The humans were outnumbered 25-1, but numbers meant nothing when your enemy was fighting shadows and illusions. All ships, activate phase generators, Park ordered. Let them see what they expect to see. Across the human fleet, engineer Nam Soo-jin's technology came to life. Ships that were solid metal became ghostly apparitions. Vessels that followed the laws of physics began to phase in and out of normal space. The human fleet transformed from a collection of ships into something that looked like a nightmare made real. On the Dominion flagship, sensors began screaming warnings that made no sense. "Sir, the alien ships are doing something impossible," the sensor operator reported, his voice shaking. "They are existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Our targeting systems cannot lock onto them." Admiral Korith felt his confidence crumbling. In 500 years of warfare, he had never encountered anything like this. His ships were designed to fight enemies that followed the same physical laws as everyone else. But these aliens seemed to exist outside reality itself. "Begin the attack," he ordered, because that was all he knew how to do. The Dominion fleet opened fire with weapons that could crack moons. Energy beams that burned hotter than stars lanced out toward the human ships. Missiles that could level mountains streaked through space. The firepower was enough to sterilize entire worlds, but the human ships simply were not there. When the weapons arrived, Captain Lim Yuri piloted her fighter Ghost Walker through the battle, her ship's holographic projectors making it appear like a creature from the deepest nightmares. Around her, human pilots performed maneuvers that looked impossible to Dominion eyes but were actually quite simple once you understood the trick. "All fighters, remember the pattern," she broadcast to her. "Squadron, make them think we can do things that cannot be done." The Dominion pilots fired at targets that vanished the moment their weapons reached them. They chased ships that seemed to teleport from place to place. Their most experienced aces found themselves outmaneuvered by enemies who appeared to ignore the basic laws of motion. But the humans were not really teleporting or phasing through dimensions. They were using advanced stealth technology, holographic decoys, and three-dimensional tactics that took advantage of the nebula's dense particle clouds. Every impossible maneuver was actually possible once you knew the secret. Colonel An Jae-sung watched the battle from the Dominion Command Center on Sigma Station. His role was to provide real-time intelligence analysis to Admiral Korith. Instead, he fed carefully chosen misinformation that made the human tactics seem even more mysterious and terrifying. "Sir, analysis suggests the alien ships are using some form of dimensional technology," he reported. "They appear to be shifting between our reality and something else." The lie was perfect because it explained what the Dominion was seeing while being completely impossible to counter. "You cannot fight an enemy that exists in another dimension." Dr. Kim So-ra monitored Dominion communications from her hidden position aboard the research vessel New Horizon. The panic in the enemy transmissions was beyond anything she had hoped for. Dominion commanders were reporting impossible things. Their own sensors were contradicting each other, and fear was spreading through their ranks like wildfire. "They are calling for reinforcements," she reported to Admiral Park. "Their confidence is breaking faster than we projected." Back in the battle, Admiral Korith faced a decision that would haunt him forever. His ships were taking losses while inflicting no damage on the enemy. His weapons could not hit targets that seemed to exist everywhere and nowhere at once. His tactical expertise was useless against enemies who followed no known rules of warfare. "Sir, we have lost 12 ships and damaged 40 more," his tactical officer reported. "Enemy losses are 0. 0? Korith could not believe it. "Our weapons pass through them like they are made of light, sir. But their weapons hit us every time." The truth was simpler than Admiral Korith could imagine. The human ships were using the nebula's natural properties to hide their real positions while projecting false images elsewhere. When they fired, they used conventional weapons from concealed locations. When the Dominion fired back, they shot at empty space while the real ships remained safely hidden. Major Kang Unseo coordinated the human intelligence network from her base on the Hidden Moon facility. Her job was to monitor Dominion communications and adjust human tactics in real time. The psychological profile data collected over decades was proving invaluable. "The enemy commander is showing signs of breakdown," she reported to Admiral Park. "Recommend increasing pressure on his tactical assumptions." Park nodded and gave new orders to his fleet. The human ships began performing even more impossible feats. They appeared to merge together, split apart, and move in ways that violated everything the Dominion knew about physics. On the Dominion flagship, Admiral Korith stared at his tactical displays in growing horror. The alien ships were not just winning. They were toying with his forces, demonstrating capabilities that should not exist in any universe governed by natural laws. "Sir, request permission to withdraw," his second-in-command said quietly. The words hit Korith like a physical blow. Withdraw, retreat, admit defeat. In 5 centuries of service, he had never spoken those words. But as he watched his ships being picked apart by enemies he could not understand, could not hit, could not fight, he realized he had no choice. "All ships, begin strategic withdrawal," he ordered, each word like poison in his mouth. The Dominion fleet pulled back, leaving the battlefield to enemies that seemed more like demons than any known form of life. As they retreated, the alien ships did not pursue. They simply watched, silent and terrible, as the greatest military force in galactic history fled in defeat. But some Dominion officers had sharp eyes and good memories. Captain Veltar of the cruiser Iron Resolve noticed something during the retreat. For just a moment, when one of the alien ships passed through a particularly dense particle cloud, its true shape became visible. The outline looked familiar, almost like a ship design he had seen before in classified intelligence reports. "Computer, analyze sensor log timestamp 847.3. He ordered quietly. The computer processed the data and displayed the brief image. "Captain." Veltar stared at it for a long moment. The ship's hull configuration, the engine placement, the overall design philosophy all reminded him of something. But what? He filed the observation in his personal log and said nothing to his crew. But the seed of doubt had been planted. If the aliens were really aliens, why did their ships look almost familiar? Meanwhile, Admiral Park Jinwoo stood on his bridge, watching the Dominion fleet disappear into hyperspace. The first phase of the plan was complete. They had proven that the Dominion could be defeated, that their military supremacy was an illusion. That fear was indeed more powerful than any weapon, but Park knew this was only the beginning. The Dominion would not give up easily. They would analyze what had happened, look for weaknesses, try to understand their defeat. Some of them might even begin to guess the truth. The real test was yet to come. Maintaining the deception while achieving their ultimate goal would require even more careful planning, more perfect execution, and more human ingenuity than anything they had attempted so far. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the greatest victories are won not by being stronger than your enemy, but by being smarter than they could ever imagine. Supreme Chancellor Vextar had not slept in 3 days. The defeat at Kepler Nebula had shaken the Dominion to its core. For the first time in 3,000 years, their military had been crushed by an enemy they could not understand. The reports from Admiral Korith read like fantasy stories, full of impossible ships and weapons that defied every known law of physics. But Vextar was old and cunning. He had ruled the galaxy for 2 centuries by questioning everything, trusting no one, completely, and always looking for the truth hidden beneath the obvious. Something about this alien threat bothered him. Something felt wrong. Intelligence Director Kethrak, he called to his aide. I want a complete review of everything we know about these aliens. Every sensor reading, every communication, every piece of debris. Look for patterns, inconsistencies, anything that does not fit. Kethrak bowed low. It shall be done, Chancellor. And Kethrak, Vextar added quietly. Do this review personally. Trust no one else with this task. What Vextar did not know was that his paranoia was exactly what Dr. Shin Tae-young had predicted. The human psychologist had spent years studying Dominion leadership patterns. She knew that overwhelming displays of power would eventually make suspicious minds look for deception. Captain Veltar of the cruiser Iron Resolve could not stop thinking about what he had seen during the battle. That brief glimpse of the alien ships. True shape haunted his dreams. He had run the sensor data through every analysis program available, but the computer could not identify the design dot, so he decided to investigate manually. Veltar spent hours searching through classified databases, looking at ship designs from every known species in the galaxy. Most were too different to match what he had seen. But then he found something that made his blood freeze. In the deepest archives, in files marked with the highest security classifications, he found reports from the Outer Rim territories. Reports about mysterious ships that had been spotted over the past 20 years. Ships that appeared briefly, were never identified, and vanished before proper contact could be made. The hull configurations in those old reports matched what he had seen during the battle. Computer, analyze correlation between archived sightings and current alien vessel configuration. He ordered. The results appeared on his screen moments later. 73% match probability. The aliens had been scouting Dominion space for decades, but that created a new question. If they had been studying the Dominion for so long, how much did they really know about Dominion society, technology, and military tactics? Dr. Kim So-ra felt the pressure building around her cover identity. Dominion scientists were asking more questions, demanding more detailed analysis of the alien technology. They wanted her expertise in stellar phenomena to help explain how the alien ships could phase between dimensions. The problem was that the technology was not actually dimensional. It was advanced holographics combined with stealth systems. But she could not say that without revealing the truth about human capabilities. Dr. Kim called her research supervisor. We need your analysis of the energy signatures from the battle. Kim looked at the data on her screen. It showed the carefully crafted false readings that engineer Nam Soo-jin had designed to confuse Dominion sensors. To most observers, it looked like impossible physics. But Kim could see the subtle patterns that revealed the deception. The energy patterns suggest multidimensional particle manipulation, she reported, hating herself for the lie. Beyond our current understanding of quantum mechanics. Her supervisor nodded gravely, as we feared. We are dealing with technology centuries ahead of our own. Meanwhile, General Choi Min-ho received urgent orders from his human contacts. The deception was working too well. Dominion scientists were beginning to study the false evidence so carefully that they might accidentally discover the truth. Initiate confusion protocols, came the coded message. Increase contradictory evidence. Choi understood. The humans needed to make their technology seem so impossible that Dominion scientists would stop trying to analyze it rationally. Fear of the unknown was more powerful than fear of the understood. He began feeding new false intelligence into Dominion systems. Reports that the alien ships were actually time travelers from the future. Theories that they came from parallel universes. Wild speculation that made rational analysis impossible. On the hidden moonbase, Major Kang Yoon-seo monitored Dominion communications with growing concern. The psychological profile suggested that Supreme Chancellor Vex Tar was beginning to suspect deception, even if he did not know what kind. Admiral Park, she reported through secure channels, the Dominion leadership is becoming suspicious. Recommend increasing pressure to prevent detailed investigation. Admiral Park Jinwoo considered the options available. The human fleet needed to maintain the illusion while preventing the Dominion from looking too closely at the evidence. That meant another demonstration of impossible power, something so overwhelming that it would distract from inconsistencies. In previous encounters, prepare Operation Mirror Break, Park ordered. Time to show them something that will occupy their full attention. Captain Lim Yuri received the orders while her ship Ghostwalker was hidden in an asteroid field near the Dominion world of Beta Centauri. Operation Mirror Break was the most ambitious deception yet attempted. Her fighter squadron would appear to attack a heavily defended world, demonstrate impossible capabilities, and then vanish without a trace. The psychological impact would be devastating. But the real purpose was to give Dominion analysts so much new impossible data that they would not have time to question the old evidence. Back on Nexus Prime, Intelligence Director Kethrock presented his findings to Supreme Chancellor Vextar. The review had taken 4 days and covered every piece of evidence about the alien threat. Chancellor, Kethrock reported, there are irregularities in the data. Vextar leaned forward. What kind of irregularities? The alien ship movements follow patterns that suggest knowledge of our defensive strategies. Their attacks target exactly the psychological pressure points that would cause maximum fear in our species. And most strangely, their technology shows signs of being based on enhanced versions of our own systems. Explain that last point. The energy signatures are wrong for truly alien technology. They show harmonic frequencies that match our own power systems, but amplify beyond what should be possible. It is as if someone took our technology and improved it in ways we cannot understand. Vextar felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together. In his mind, could these aliens have been studying us longer than we thought? Possibly, Chancellor, but there is another explanation. Which is, Kethrock hesitated before speaking. What if they are not aliens at all? The words hung in the air like poison. Supreme Chancellor Vextar stared at his intelligence director. For a long moment, considering possibilities that would reshape everything he thought he knew about the crisis. You think they are some unknown species from within our own territory? Or, Kethrock said carefully, beings who have been living among us without our knowledge. Before Vextar could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the government. Complex. Emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels with reports that made the previous alien encounters seem minor. Chancellor, his aide called out in panic, the aliens are attacking Beta Centauri. But sir, the reports do not make sense. They say the alien ships are passing through the planet itself. On the screens around the command center, impossible images appeared. Ships the size of moons moving through solid rock as if it were empty. Space. Weapons that turned matter into energy and energy back into matter. Technology that seemed to rewrite the laws of reality itself. Operation Mirror Break was working perfectly. Captain Lim Yuri and her pilots were projecting holographic images that showed human ships doing impossible things. The real ships remained safely hidden while their projections performed feats that violated every known principle of physics. But the operation had an unexpected side effect. In his private chamber, Captain Veltar was comparing the new sensor readings to his archived data when he noticed something that made his heart stop. One of the attacking ships, during a brief moment when its impossible abilities flickered, showed the same hull configuration he had recorded during the first battle. The same design he had been tracking through 20 years of archived reports, but now he noticed something else. The proportions, the engine placement, the overall aesthetic matched ship designs he had seen in intelligence briefings about Unknown. Vessels in the Outer Rim. Ships that had been dismissed as pirates or smugglers. Ships that looked suspiciously like they had been built by someone who understood Dominion technology, but was not bound by Dominion design philosophy. Computer, he whispered, cross-reference hull design with all known non-Dominion species. The computer worked for several minutes before responding. No matches found in known alien databases. Closest match is theoretical human vessel design. From archived first contact protocols. Human? Veltar had never heard the term before. Classification, unknown species. Intelligence reports suggest possible settlement in Outer Rim territories. No confirmed contact. Status, unverified. Captain Veltar stared at the screen, pieces of an impossible puzzle forming in his mind. What if the greatest alien threat in galactic history was not alien at all? What if they were fighting someone who had been hiding in the shadows of their own empire for decades? He began copying files to a secure data storage device. If he was right, this information could change everything. But first, he needed to be absolutely certain. The truth was closer than anyone in the Dominion suspected, but discovering it would require courage that few possessed and consequences that none could predict. Captain Veltar stood before Supreme Chancellor Vexstar in the most secure chamber on Nexus Prime. His hands shook as he held the data storage device that contained 20 years of evidence. The truth he had discovered would either save the Dominion or destroy it completely. Chancellor, Veltar said quietly, I believe the aliens are not aliens at all. Vexstar had been expecting this moment for days. The irregularities in the data, the too perfect targeting of Dominion weaknesses, the impossible technology that seemed based on their own systems. All of it pointed to one terrible conclusion. Show me, Vexstar ordered. The holographic display filled with images spanning 2 decades. Ships spotted in the Outer Rim territories. Energy signatures that matched no known species. Technology that improved upon Dominion designs in ways that should have been impossible. And finally, the classified files that mentioned a species called humans. Computer, display all available data on species designation human, Vexstar commanded. The files were sparse and heavily classified. References to settlements in the Outer Rim. Reports of high intelligence and advanced technology. Warnings about potential infiltration capabilities. And most disturbing of all, psychological profiles that suggested humans were masters of deception and strategic thinking. How long have they been among us? Vexstar whispered. Intelligence Director Kethrak entered the chamber carrying more data files. His face was pale with shock and fear. Chancellor, Kethrak reported, we have identified at least 47 individuals in key positions throughout the Dominion who show biological markers consistent with the human species. They have been living among us for decades. The scope of the infiltration was staggering. Humans in the military academies, in research facilities, in intelligence services, even in the government itself. They had not conquered the Dominion through force. They had simply walked in and made themselves at home. Dr. Kim So-ra knew the game was over when Dominion security forces surrounded her laboratory. She had been expecting this moment for months. The deception could not last forever, and sharp minds like Captain Veltar would eventually piece together the truth. Dr. Kim, the security chief said formally, you are under arrest for espionage and infiltration. Kim smiled sadly. I suppose you want an explanation. The Chancellor wishes to speak with you personally. Meanwhile, on the human flagship New Seoul, Admiral Park Jin-woo received urgent communications from his network of operatives throughout Dominion space. The infiltrators were being discovered one by one. The Great Deception was collapsing faster than they had planned. Sir, his communications officer reported, we are receiving surrender codes from 17 of our deep cover agents. The Dominion has identified them. Park nodded calmly. This too had been part of the plan. though they had hoped to maintain the deception longer. Now it was time for the final phase. "Signal all human vessels," Park ordered. "Operation Truth begins now." Across the galaxy, human ships that had been hiding in the shadows for decades began revealing themselves. The massive fleet that the Dominion thought was their only problem was just the visible part of a much larger presence. Humans had been everywhere, watching, learning, preparing. In the secure chamber on Nexus Prime, Dr. Kim So-Ru sat across from Supreme Chancellor Vexstar. Between them lay the truth that would reshape galactic civilization. "How long?" Vexstar asked simply. 70 years, Kim replied. "We have been studying your civilization since before you knew we existed." "Why the deception? Why make us think you were some impossible alien threat?" Kim leaned back in her chair. "Because direct confrontation would have led to a war that would have destroyed both our peoples. You had superior numbers and firepower. We had superior technology and understanding of your psychology. A real war would have been devastating. So, you chose to terrify us instead. We chose to make you think. Fear makes people careful. It makes them question their assumptions. It makes them consider alternatives to violence." Vexstar felt the weight of 3,000 years of Dominion supremacy crumbling around him. "What do you want from us?" "Equality," Kim said simply. "A place at the galactic table. Recognition as a species worthy of respect rather than conquest." "And if we refuse?" Kim's expression grew serious. "Chancellor, you have seen only a fraction of our capabilities. The impossible technology, the coordinated fleets, the infiltration of your society. All of that was just to get your attention. We could have destroyed the Dominion at any time over the past 20 years. Instead, we chose to reveal ourselves slowly, to let you adapt to the idea that you are not alone at the top of the galactic hierarchy." General Choi Min-ho removed his disguise for the first time in 15 years. Standing before his former colleagues at the Dominion Military Academy, he explained the truth about human strategy and psychology. "Everything you taught me about warfare, I used against you," he told the assembled officers. "But not to destroy you. To save both our species from a conflict that would have benefited no one." The Dominion officers stared at him in shock and growing understanding. The enemy who had outmaneuvered their greatest fleets was someone they had trained themselves. Engineer Nam Soo-jin demonstrated her technology to Dominion scientists, showing them how simple principles could create apparently impossible effects. The phase generators, the holographic projectors, the sensor scramblers that had made human ships seem like ghosts from another dimension. "Your own technology, improved and combined in ways you had not considered," she explained. "We did not bring alien super science to this galaxy. We brought human creativity applied to Dominion engineering." Supreme Chancellor Vexstar made the hardest decision of his long life. He could reveal the truth to the galaxy and watch the Dominion tear itself apart in fear and paranoia. He could continue fighting an enemy that had proven they could destroy him whenever they chose. Or he could take the path that no Dominion leader had ever considered. He could negotiate as an equal. "What are your terms?" he asked Dr. Kim So-Ra. "Simple," Kim replied. "Humans emerge from hiding as a newly discovered species. We contribute our technology to galactic civilization. We participate in galactic government as equal partners. And we help you transition from an empire built on conquest to a federation built on cooperation. And if other species refuse to accept human equality." Kim smiled. "Chancellor, you have just spent months being terrified by what you thought was an alien invasion. Do you really think other species will be eager to challenge beings they believe possess impossible technology?" The transition took 6 months. To the galaxy at large, it appeared that the Dominion had successfully negotiated with the mysterious aliens, convincing them to join galactic civilization peacefully. The truth about human infiltration and deception remained classified at the POV highest levels. Captain Lee Daeho, no longer hiding in stealth ships, commanded a human vessel in the newly formed Galactic Federation fleet. Beside him, former Dominion officers worked as equals and partners rather than conquerors and subjects. "Strange how things work out," commented his Dominion counterpart, Captain Veltar. "A year ago, I was hunting you as an enemy. Now we serve." Together, Lee smiled. "The best victories are the ones where everyone wins." Admiral Park Jin-woo stood in the Federation Council chambers, watching representatives from dozens of species work together to build a new form of galactic government. The Dominion's military might combined with human technology and creativity was creating possibilities that neither species could have achieved alone. Dr. Shin Taeyeon published her psychological studies of the crisis, though with all references to human deception carefully removed. To galactic scholars, it became a masterwork on interspecies diplomacy and the peaceful resolution of conflicts. But in private moments, when only humans were present, she would smile and remember the greatest psychological operation in galactic history, the day humanity convinced the most powerful empire in the galaxy to accept them as equals by making them too afraid to refuse. Supreme Chancellor Vextar, now President Vextar of the Galactic Federation, often reflected on the lesson humans had taught him. Sometimes the greatest strength was not in being feared, but in helping others overcome their fears. And sometimes the most alien thing about a species was how familiar they could be once you stopped being afraid and started listening. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. But perhaps the greatest wonder was how two species that could have destroyed each other chose instead to build something better together. In the end, the humans had been right. The best weapon was not superior firepower or impossible technology. It was the simple understanding that everyone was stronger together than apart, even if it took a little creative deception to help people realize that truth.